Yeah, and especially Ruin, because it's
Yeah.
been driving me crazy. Ruin is so FNAF world pilled.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host with the toast, Toast here with a very special guest. Why don't you go and introduce yourself?
Golden Freddy is a time traveler. Find the clocks.
Let's go.
I'm the Oof Troop. I've been here before.
True.
This seems
If y'all missed
familiar.
that, that's a skill issue. It's in the card if I remembered.
It'll probably help to watch it first too, because it plays into all my FNAF world insanity.
Speaking of, today's topic is FNAF World in general. What the fuck is its deal, huh?
I've been thinking every day since it happened. That sudden FNAF World has been updated in Steam database. It's like,
yeah.
What?
Yeah, if anyone missed that recently, so Steam database is like a way to track like game updates, game files, things like that, especially things that either have not released yet or have not released updates yet. And for some reason, FNAF World updated in the Steam database, and then also I believe the free version of FNAF World on Steam was taken down.
Yes, the
Like,
free one
very
was
recently.
taken down, and there's I think a new update branch for the paid version.
Which is like, huh? So maybe FNAF World content soon, thank God it's the best FNAF game so far.
It really is.
And
It's
then
up there
soon
on my
5
tier
Laps at
list.
Freddy's is going to be the best game once it comes out. I am unbelievably excited for 5 Laps at Freddy's. That's all I can think about in the 8 days of August is 5 Laps at Freddy's.
If it has Dreadbear in it, that's all that will matter, I think.
As long as it's a little bit good, I will play it every week on stream. That literally any excuse to play a kart racer. But FNAF
You're gonna
World.
get so much out of that demo.
Oh yeah, I'm going to milk that demo until it's a
They could take
shriveled
2
corpse
more
on the
years.
ground.
They could take 2 more years making that game, and you would still be playing the demo.
All that means is I'll already be the #1 in the world before the game comes out. And then, lo and behold, the full game comes out and they've adjusted the controls and mechanics, so all of my training was for nothing.
But yeah,
But FNAF World. Did you want to kick off the FNAF World conversation? Because I've got a couple points to bring up, and I can bring them up now.
How about you go
we so
first,
choose.
and we'll see what
Sure.
happens.
Let's start easy. I think this is an easier topic. Desk guy from the Halloween path of FNAF World.
Oh,
Is
you
this-
call that easy?
Well, this question, the specifics aren't, but this question I think is easy. Is that just Scott Vent art, or is that supposed to be someone? Because I feel like a lot of the lead up to FNAF World was kind of just Scott Vent art. Meanwhile, FNAF World has a lot of the whole thing with Anim Dude being involved, the Puppet Master, is that important? Probably. Desk Guy, I've seen a lot of people say that this character kind of just feels like Scott being frustrated and isn't necessarily a in-universe character. I have thoughts on that. Do you want to say what your thoughts are first?
What is Scott Cawthon Vent art, if not Henry lore?
True. Is it really Vent art if you as a person are an OC in your own franchise? Twice.
Because I feel like half the time where it's like, oh, Scott Cawthon Vent art in FNAF, it's probably just Henry. Because Henry's just a sadder version of Scott.
Fair. Well, would you then be saying Desk Guy is meant to be, or at least in some way representative of Henry?
Yeah, I'd say so. I don't really know the specifics. I haven't really given it that much thought
Sure.
because it is kind of tricky, and I don't really
Yeah.
care that much.
Yeah, it's ultimately not like hugely important.
Like, it's not pressing, so I'm
Yeah.
like, I'll worry about it later.
Because I think I believe that Henry had a hand, if not the main hand, in creating the Fun Times. I think that lines
At
up.
least Baby, yeah.
Yeah, at least Baby. So the idea of like him creating Baby, that makes sense. The thing where it stops being super sensical is the fact that he dies at the end of that cutscene, presumably from Baby.
Yeah. Which
Then
that
it's
begs
like-
the question is, like, if that is a literal interpretation, is Henry possessing something by Pizza Sim?
Is Henry also purple? Question mark.
He's
Now,
scrap
here's
trapped, didn't you know it?
Here's a
It's not William.
horrifying revelation that in writing today's document for the podcast, I kind of stumbled into.
What's that?
Because I was like, it ain't William. I don't think this guy is William.
No.
It's probably Henry, but dies at the end of the cutscene, which, like, okay, does Henry possess himself? Is that something else? There is another character in the grander FNAF canon who could have had a hand in creating the Fun Times, who, as far as we're aware, now this would one introduce a series of something into the continuity and then immediately go against it.
Let me guess, Edwin?
Edwin. Because, like, on one hand, it's like, okay, Edwin creates the Mimic in Tails, and obviously Edwin is capable of creating something like a Fun Time if he was able to create that. However, if we're going by Tails logic, he's alive until Security Breach.
Yeah.
So then he also couldn't be the desk guy. So it's like, it's one of those things where I'm like, there's no clean socket for desk guy.
But there could be.
Could be. A secret nasty fourth option, someone we haven't met yet. You know?
Horrible. Horrible. No.
Horrible, disgusting, unfortunately possible.
It's Mr. Renner.
Oh,
Renner.
you know what? Now it finally makes sense.
There
Hey,
we
can we
go.
talk about how that's the worst Tales book in the entire fucking franchise?
Oh, I wouldn't know. I didn't read that one.
I hate Animatronic Apocalypse so much. Mainly because it meanders for the whole story, makes no sense, and then leaves. Like, there isn't even, like, a huge twist reveal or anything. It just continues to make no sense, and then it ends.
You know.
Animatronic Apocalypse fans, all two of you, you're not welcome here. This is not a safe space. But yeah, I was thinking about Desk Guy. I'm like, because when you think of the, like, on the surface mysteries of FNAF World, I feel like Desk Guy comes up, Old Man Consequences comes up, the beginning and ending come up. Like those are, I feel like, the first ones that usually bubble to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of, if Desk Guy is probably maybe Henry, what are your thoughts on Old Man Consequences?
I still think he's Henry. I haven't changed my mind on that since last
Oops,
time.
all Henry. Oops,
Oops,
all
all Henry.
Henry. There was a recent question someone submitted to the podcast of the possibility of Old Man Consequences being Michael. And I'm not
that
opposed
was
to that.
That was the dual process theory, wasn't it? Or like one of their like points.
I don't, no, I think their point was that Michael was the vengeful spirit. And that Old Man Consequences is kind of asking Michael to be like, hey, you should let this go. I think they also believe Old Man Consequences is Henry. I could be wrong.
Oh, I think, yeah, I think so. It was you that brought up the mic thing, I think.
It was, yeah, someone submitted it to the podcast of like, what if it's
Right.
Michael? And I was like,
Right,
I kind of really dig that.
Yeah, I remember
Especially
now.
like looking at the Old Man Consequences sprite, and maybe it wasn't a crocodile, maybe it's been a foxy mask. And I kind
It's
of
not-
dig that.
It's hard to tell what that sprite is supposed
It's a
to be. 'cause
weird sprite, huh?
I don't think it's supposed to be a crocodile, honestly.
It's probably
because,
just a
like-
baseball hat, right? Like, let me pull up the sprite.
Like, it looks like it's something with teeth, but, like, we haven't really gotten any sort of, like, hints toward him being related to crocodiles. Like, we got Monty, who doesn't seem to
Yeah.
have much to do with them.
You're right, though. It does have teeth. Like, that can't just
yeah.
be a baseball cap. Unless it's a baseball cap and also smoking a weird pipe. But like that's a strange thing to try to pull off in that few pixels. And then there's also the horrible option of, is this Scott being not great at pixel art and trying to do a sideways profile? Interesting. On Google Images, when I looked it up, someone's post to r/FNAF theories, who is this? Crown Vanguard, compared the jaw to the jaw of the FNAF 4 Fredbear sprite. And I don't hate that. I do kind of see it. But I don't think it would be the crying child.
Okay, sorry, I had to.
Oh, no, you're
turn
good.
off my mic for a second. Catch me up. Sorry.
Oh no, it was. I saw this in the Google image results. Let me just send it on Discord. And like, I don't think that's the case, but I do. I see the jaw comparison.
So they're saying that Crying Child would be Old Man Consequences because of the Fredbear thing, it looks
I
like.
guess, and like I think I like Mike more than that, but I also think I like Henry more than any of those options.
I think if we're going the Fredbear lens, that just kind of lends more credence to Henry, because that's his suit.
True.
The real question is just, is this supposed to be Fredbear if the Freddy sprite in the same like cutscene in FNAF World is very clearly like a Freddy silhouette?
Not to mention, yeah, in the same shot, like very clearly.
Yeah, like he's right there.
Not to mention, what
And then,
did I forget what the character encyclopedia said about Old Man Consequences 2.
Not a lot.
Not a lot.
Let me check. I have it on my phone.
Yeah, it was also the Google image responses, so I'm reading that.
Oh, easy.
It just mentions that he's in FNAF World and Ultimate Custom Night. And then mentions the Old Man Consequences Easter egg.
Yeah, that's not very helpful.
Not super helpful. I do like that it forgets to mention that he appeared in FNAF World in the data file, but it does say it in the paragraph. Shout out Character Encyclopedia.
Yeah, I think it just does not have FNAF World as like an option of games.
It does for Dee Dee, which is
it does
really
it for
funny.
Dee Dee?
It does it for Dee Dee, but not for Old Man Consequences or anyone else.
I hate that book. I hate that book.
Oh God, the Character Encyclopedia is such a treasure. Yeah, I don't know, because it's definitely like somebody sitting fishing, but that jaw is odd.
Wait, why is Ruinborn Afton in the background of that picture?
Huh? Did I?
The picture
Wait,
you
what the fuck is
right there.
I don't know. Blame fucking who posted this again? Hey, Crown Vanguard. Why is Ruinborn Afton in the background?
No, wait. Ruinborn Afton's side profile? Old Man
Also
Consequences.
T-posing.
Solved.
True. Yeah, because I get looking at this and going, oh, Gator. But like the only thing, I think the main reason I'm liking Michael right now as a possibility is narrative, and also kind of looks like a Fox mask near like the middle of the woods where his childhood home would be. Compounding with the idea, if Help Wanted's Fall Fest is accurate at all, then there was a giant lake next to Fall Fest, which I believe is in the Fall Fest would have been in the clearing of Midnight Motorist, ergo being nearby the childhood home as well.
I also think something
Which is super convoluted,
is,
but like...
Yeah. Another one is like, in Ruin, it's right next to the pizza place. The Red Lake is right there. And there's dead trees surrounding it.
That's also very good. Because, I mean, that would also...
Yeah.
That's Henry's building, essentially.
Yeah, that's Henry's building. And if you want to go the Michael lens, Mike's
also
presumably the manager there.
Yeah.
But
do you have any, like, because I think we both agree Michael, player character in FNAF 6, makes the most sense.
Yeah.
Do you have any like inkling for like any other option? Because I really can't see any other option being
not really, because
it makes so much sense.
Because I feel like if that was something that was not supposed to be intended, it would have been clarified by now.
Yeah.
But it seems to have just kind of been like widely accepted for the most part and not really like brought up to question again.
I feel like the only evidence I ever see put forward for that is the whole not intended for you. And I'm like, well, it's not intended for Michael because Michael should be dead. Michael said
like,
he should be
dead. There was a
dead.
way out planned, but Henry's like, I don't think that's where you want to be. So if it's like Joe from accounting,
yeah, why is
Henry think he wanted
why
to
is
stay
Joe
there?
so ready to burn? Like,
The real question is if Michael actually died from that fire.
true. I sure hope he did. I mean,
No
the
one
more
died.
people that
No
died
one
in the
died.
FNAF 6 fire, the better for my mental health.
No, the only one is Henry.
Yeah, right. I mean, it begs the question, especially like my whole thought process was for a while, if the Tangle is a continuation in some way of Molten Freddy, and if Burn Trap is a continuation in some way of Scrap Trap. I mean, Charlotte and Elizabeth were also there. So, I mean, where are they at? Not to
Now
mention
there's the
Help Wanted
puppet
2
plushies.
focusing on Circus Baby so much.
And there's the puppet plushies and Security Breach, separate from the
God.
Nightmarian plushies.
True.
And then, of course, I don't know where I was going with that.
Nah, you're
I have
good.
a whole, like, daycare attendant conspiracy theory involving the puppet that I'm not going to get into because that would probably take up a whole different thing.
That feels like a whole different thing.
Yeah.
I see the connective tissue there even just by mentioning that. So
Yeah.
like, and I can
Yeah,
see
this
that
was-
taking a while.
This was a whole, like, spiral I went down, like, a couple months ago when
Mm.
I was playing through base Security Breach and I was, like, trying to pay attention to, like, daycare attendant stuff because I'm like, what is their deal? What is your deal,
Daycare attendant
Mike?
is so strange, and they are so important. It's so clear.
Help Wanted 2
it's
makes
just-
them even weirder.
Help Wanted 2. Oh man, talk about weird things that Help Wanted 2 does to the continuity. The importance of the puppet, or the importance of daycare attendant, the importance of Circus Baby, and then the Fall Fest fire starting in the barn. Huh?
You know?
So, yeah, Help Wanted 2 is like, it was funny. Help Wanted 2, like, on the surface was one of the most straightforward games. It's like, oh, okay, we're probably definitely playing as Cassie's dad, doing this right before this part in the timeline. And then the more we look at the game, it's like, that's weird.
Everything gets crazier the more you look into it. I
True.
finally played through all of Help Wanted 2 myself when
Hey.
Flat Mode came out.
It's such a good
I could
game.
have played it in VR at any point, but I hate using VR because my room's too small for that.
Fair.
So I'm like, oh, I'll play through
I
Flat
do
Mode.
think Help Wanted 2 is much better as a VR game than a flat mode game.
Oh,
Flat mode is
definitely.
definitely an afterthought for Help Wanted 2. Because like Help Wanted, I think it's not as drastic. Help Wanted 2, flat mode is an afterthought.
That's funny because I actually had the exact opposite opinion in terms of like Help Wanted
Really?
1 and 2. Because like anytime I've tried to play Help Wanted 1 flat mode, I'm just like, I'm not having fun. This just feels really, really bare bones. And then when I opened up Help Wanted 2 flat mode, I'm like, oh, this actually feels really nice.
To be fair,
Um,
that is kind of... Now, I love Help Wanted, don't get me wrong. But in general, after playing Help Wanted 2, it's kind of that way for me.
Yeah,
anyway.
that's true. It's just a better
It's kind
game
of
in
like I've been
general.
eating a good dish, and then you served me like a 3-star dish, and now the good dish doesn't taste as good anymore.
Yeah, Help Wanted 1 is just kind of like the most like, I don't know, aged FNAF game.
Yeah,
If
I
that
think
makes
so.
sense.
'Cause
Ironic
I-
because all the Scott games feel like they were made in 1995 and never updated for anything, even
Yeah.
though they were in 2015. But
Shout out only FNAF 2 being in 4.3. Shout out. Oh, and I think FNAF 4, was it like every other?
it was all of them between FNAF 1 and Sister Location. Like 2, 3, and 4 were all stretched 4x3, and it's so obnoxious.
It's so weird. It would be one thing if FNAF 1 was also in 4x3.
But no.
But
He
FNAF
did
1
it in
is fucking
16:9.
normal.
He
And
did it in
then it's 4 right
16:9,
there.
and then he stopped doing it. It's because FNAF
It's
2 is a prequel.
crazy.
It's because the prequel
true.
is older.
That's because they all are.
Yeah, FNAF 3 is a prequel. It was the first one in the timeline, actually.
It actually all started. The little known fact: Fall Fest was the colloquial term. The Fall Fest's title was Fazbear's Fright. So that's
Springtrap. Springtrap is just what William always looked like. He was just born like that.
he never got spring locked. His body just did that.
Now Scrap Trap is what happens after he gets spring locked.
Scrap Trap is just what happens
Trap.
when someone born that way ages.
Yeah.
But FNAF World.
FNAF World, yeah. So, do you have any other like little?
The only other thing I wrote down, was, I'm going to bat for it. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I will die on this hill. I think the clock ending is Charlotte, whoever is the player of FNAF World, essentially finding the crying child's body in Midnight Motorist. And that is the ending of FNAF World, is finding that body so then the crying child can move on. Because I think Alone Together, with its proposition of like, oh, if a wandering spirit's body is not found, they can't move on and they don't have all of their memories. I think FNAF World in general is trying to help find the crying child so they can find peace. And I'm fine to die on that hill.
I'm excited because this is like the clock ending is like the big thing I want to talk about.
Let's go. Let's talk clock ending.
It's gonna be wild. I think this is gonna be the thing that paints me as an absolute maniac.
Let's go.
But you know,
Twitter, get your clippers ready.
Hey, as long as I'm not talking about Burn Trap, I think they'll be fine.
True.
But anyway, so first off, the idea that we might be playing as Charlotte is very interesting compared to like what the Glitch Fredbear like says. So I have his like wiki page pulled up so I can read his dialogue.
No, you're good. I think I think I overstepped. I think in my theory, like my actual like written thought through theory, it was that Charlotte kind of sets up FNAF World and we are an agent within it.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Because someone sets it up. I'm thinking probably Golden Freddy.
I think I think there's two voices of FNAF World. Because I think Glitch Fredbear speaks much differently than the intro outro, like 2-dot voice. If I had to like gun to my head make a choice, I would say Charlotte is the voice of the intro and outro, and the glitched Fredbear is Golden Freddy, whoever is within there, the vengeful spirit, if you will.
Yeah, I could see that. But yeah, let me read his dialogue.
For sure.
This is a safe place, a sanctuary. The truth is that there is no safe place. You don't understand that. You were made for one thing. There's a task for you to complete. Before you take this passage, go back, find the clock. I wanna draw attention to, you were made for one thing. Find the clock. That insinuates that, like, the entity we play as in FNAF World was created for specifically the clock ending.
Yeah.
Which is strange.
Yeah, because like I can wrap my head around, it's a stretch, but I can wrap my head around FNAF World being this sort of memory exploration remnant fueled thing. But as far as creating an entity within that to do a task, that's unprecedented as far as I can see. Like I can't connect that to anything like, oh, that reminds me of this. I can't pull that.
What I'm thinking is this doesn't have a lot of connective tissue right now because I just thought about this today.
Huge breaking.
But potentially we could be Shadow Freddy. And maybe the shadows were created within like the spiritual realm for the purpose of like guiding the spirits or like taking or like piecing things together.
Interesting. So I guess this would lean on kind of Shadow Freddy's role in Follow Me.
Yes. Which that also has some weird like connection to the entity in Ruin, but I'm gonna save that for later, I think.
Yeah. I see where your thought process is. I don't like on the face of it, I'm not like bristling.
Yeah, I'm not too sure about it yet either. That's something like I want to give more thought.
It's interesting
at a
because
later
I've
time.
for a while thought Shadow Freddy and Shadow Bonnie were agony reflections of Vengeful Spirit and Charlotte respectively. And that's mainly because the roles they play. Like where Shadow Bonnie is kind of like a defender of Remnant in a way in FNAF AR. And Shadow Freddy has always been kind of more aggressive. If you envision Follow Me as trying to get someone to get William. Because then every other instance of Shadow Freddy, like looking at their move sets in FNAF World, for instance, Shadow Freddy is
Shadow
all instant
Bonnie's is
kills
all
and Shadow
defense.
Bonnie's is all defense.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for a
It's-
while, I've been thinking that.
Yeah, it's interesting because I definitely think that that's like a big thing. It's like highlighting their differences there. And then like in FNAF 3, Shadow Bonnie like assists in like giving cake to one of the children.
Yeah.
And that's a whole can of worms that I haven't fully like thought about
Yeah,
yet. But
the Happiest Day mini series of mini games gets weirder the more you look at it.
yeah.
It's
And-
like, okay, you're using like a metaphor to show that you're giving memories back. Hey, why does this metaphor involve Shadow Bonnie? Hey, why are we going to Fredbear's Family Diner multiple times? Like, huh?
It's like using memories and like vessels of the actual characters, and I feel like it's probably more literal than it actually seems, which is really weird to wrap your head around. But
I think Alone Together, for me, sheds a lot of light on how Happiest Day is functioning. That and similarly, the ending of The Fourth Closet as well.
yeah,
The idea of like, oh, here are these kids who are kind of in their mind just hanging out at the pizza place. I need to find these scattered memories and put them together for them.
yeah, and like another thing with the like Happiest Day mini games, the clock ending,
Yeah.
is all of the like once you get each clock, you get sent to like the blueprint for one of the good ending mini games, and you have to piece it together.
Which is
all
weird.
all of them are in like stark white, and the Shadow Cupcakes and Shadow Bonnie like in turn are represented as white. So that kind of like goes back to the like Freddy thing. Could that be like hinting towards our character being Shadow Freddy? I don't know.
I could see that. Because there's merit to one of the biggest, like even more confusing than the purpose of the clock minigames are the like what's actually happening. Like you're right to point that out of like, if we are setting up Happiest Day and we were created to set up the Happiest Day, what are we?
Yeah. And then like Help Wanted 2 kind of delivers the same sort of concept where you go deeper, you go into Princess Quest, which is so like absurdly abstract that like I think half the community does not even really know or care what's going on in Princess Quest. Like it's only like big theory heads that like really want to
I think
dive
like
into
Princess Quest 4 I think is the perfect modernization of 8-bit minigames, right? Because it's like it's a good, nice to look at, well-made minigame that equally makes as little sense, but in like a more abstract way now, rather than just being hard to visually look at.
Yeah. It's weird. And I feel like it's supposed to be. Because I think Princess Quest and like maybe like the video game kind of realm that it embodies, assuming we might get more like it in the future, might be kind of like the deepest subtunnel of like the real world, like of the FNAF surface. If that
I
makes
could
sense.
see that, especially with like one of the big theme. Since I've recently actually sat down and read all the goddamn books, a big theme in Tales especially has been that idea of like, is there a second consciousness within this like digital space? Or if you die while within a digital space, does your consciousness remain? Like that's been a big theme in a lot of these stories. And I think tying that to Happiest Day and Princess Quest, I think there's a lot of merit to that conversation.
And I also made a very crude diagram of how I think the flip side works.
Let's go.
I'll send you.
I love a diagram. Let's go. I love your Freddy at the top. He's so charming. My guy really said,
Make sure this is in the video version.
I
of the
will.
Podcast.
My guy really said, okay. So walk me through, because I can see some of this, but walk me through this.
Yeah. So we'll start at the bottom, like where FNAF World is, because
Start
that
at the
has
bottom.
like a clearly defined like showcase of how like the flip side and subtunnels work.
Okay.
So at the bottom we have FNAF World, and then you go a layer down, or in this diagram up. You go through a layer, and you're in the like more abstract, like blue, like monochrome, like area with pixelated Freddy and the trees. You go down another layer, and you have like just like a barely recognizable white Freddy head,
Yeah,
like
like the tube.
like crawling through like the forest at this point. Go down again, you get to the red lake with Old Man Consequences. And that seems to be like the middle point.
Okay.
Because we see Old Man Consequences like kind of being the end point in like both realms, it seems like.
Yeah.
It's hard to say because Ultimate Custom Night, I'm not sure like where that would be. Because I feel like
it
it's
is
got
kind
to
of
be
instant.
like, yeah.
And we're already not in reality anyway, right?
Yeah,
We're
it's like,
in that
it's not in
mental
reality.
agony space.
Yeah, it's not reality, but it reflects like how reality looks much more than FNAF World does.
Yeah.
And it's hard to tell, like, is this like a stylistic thing where it's just like sometimes it takes on different forms, or is it a distinct difference? But either way, you get to the red lake, you go through it, and that seems to be how you cross into the flip. Because like at the bottom, it's like, oh, something's gone wrong on the flip side, Fredbear says, referring to something in the real world, which is where the main FNAF games take place.
Yeah.
And vice versa, FNAF World would be the Surface World's flip side.
Okay.
And so in Ruin, I think the Vanny Mask like lets you access like a subtunnel underneath, which is mostly still recognizable. And like especially looking at like the original version of FNAF World when the overworld was still like the pixelated version before Scott updated it to be the 3D overworld because people complained.
Yeah.
That felt like it was much more cohesive in terms of the subtunnels. And not as stark a contrast as it is in Update 2. And so like in Ruin, you go into the AR world and it's mostly the same, but it's getting a little hazy. Like things like change. Some things are more restored. Some things are just like digitally rotting almost.
Yeah.
And you can go through glitched objects to warp to other places, which is like the main traversal mechanic in FNAF World is the glitched objects leading you to the subtunnels, and you essentially teleport. And it's like, and Cassie's like, oh, I went through this portal and now I'm in Superstar Daycare.
And I'm reminding myself, I think they even look similar. I could be wrong. Because in Ruin, it's that like white pixelated doorway. Okay, no,
Yes,
because in
the
FNAF
white
World, it's just like a
pixelated
square.
doorway.
But it's pixelated. It's a pixelated doorway, and like FNAF World, it is kind of just a square, but that's still like pixelated larger thing.
And the pixelated doorway, glad you mentioned that. It looks really similar to the FNAF 3 minigame doors, the exits. Like it's the exact same, like just white color with the border around it.
Oh.
Which you could say like, oh, that's just circumstantial, but there's something to think about.
No, it's worthwhile to mention.
Yeah. And then there's also like locations, like the first one that comes to mind is the Secret Monty Shrine. The like environment around it, like the backdrop, is near identical to the glitchy purple like backdrop in the Shadow Bonnie minigame in FNAF 3.
I'm Googling real quick.
If I had like thought of this 2 days ago, I would have like pulled up with like as many receipts as I possibly could.
I see what you mean. Like it's definitely like the order of the pixelation is different, but the color scheme is almost identical.
Yeah, it's very like very just purple, glitchy,
purple, blacks, whites, like very like.
And then of course you have Shadow Bonnie chasing you around the whole time in Ruin. Saying entity is Shadow Bonnie, I feel like it's probably either someone would get it or they'll go, "What are you, stupid?"
like I see.
Saying anything about the entity gets that kind of reaction where it's either, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," or "Are you stupid?"
The entity is just such an odd character.
I think it makes a lot more sense with Help Wanted 2. Because I think Princess Quest 4 kind of puts together all the pieces to kind of be like, hey,
I see where you're
become the
coming
entity.
from.
And like,
I think my only hesitation, I think my only other, really, like you were about to say, I think my only other hesitation would be the other ending of Help Wanted 2.
Yeah. Which even before Help Wanted 2, I'm like, I thought that the entity was probably the one controlling MaskBot. Like, it interfaces with the staff bot and then like gives the mask to Cassie, and then it shows up later in the AR world. So yeah, the Help Trap ending is like the one thing that's like, if we become the entity, why would that not be highlighted? But MaskBot is. Oh yeah. Another thing with Princess Quest, while I'm thinking about it, is like, I feel like that kind of displays like, again, like a subtunnel underneath the AR world, because you're already in the AR world when you go into it, and then Princess slashes you. You have like the white pixelated like thing go, and then you're in Princess Quest.
Oh, that is true. That white pixelation is very similar to the Ruin portal, like 1-to-1 almost.
Yes.
Interesting.
And the teleportation sounds, I think, I can't remember off the top of my head, but they're either really similar or they're the same as the entity's teleportation sounds.
That I don't think I can pull up quickly, but I'm just going to believe you.
Yeah, that's something people watching can like fact check and kind of like analyze.
Let us
for
know
themselves.
in the comments.
I think I'm leaning toward it's similar, but not the exact same. And then like, of course, the main mechanic is you pick a spot, you teleport, and then you keep going. You go down and down and down, which I think is going down further into the sinkhole, because like you see like the cracked floors and you like keep going. And like the way you go down is a lot like how you go down the sinkhole in Security Breach, where there's like broken platforms, like a staircase around the tangle. And then, of course, you get to the bottom office and burn traps there. And then in Help Wanted 2, that's where you get the glitch trap plushie and then hand it off to Vanny.
Not to mention the connection between the Old Man and Old Man Consequences being at the bottom there.
Yeah, that's another thing with Old Man Consequences, is the only other time we've seen him depicted, supposedly, since it's not like confirmed that the Red Old Man is him. It's just very likely.
Just very probable.
Very probable. He's named OMC in Help Wanted 2's files, I think. It feels very, like, on the nose, but...
It's one of those, like... there was one the other day I mentioned where it's like, it's one of those theories that, like... I'm not saying it's confirmed, but, like...
It feels that way.
We can sure agree that it is for now.
It's a reasonable assumption.
Yeah.
And we'll take those. But like, again, with him and going back to the Old Man Consequences, like silhouette, he's not depicted as any sort of animal. He's just an old man.
Yeah.
And I find that like very important, or at least like noteworthy. And then back to like going down the sinkhole. What do you find like slightly lower than where you're like supposed to go? If you put in the plushies right, or light the torches for the memories right,
The
you
Bonnie
go down
mask, right?
and you find a Bonnie mask in a box under supposedly like where the burn trap room would be. Assuming that this is like a deeper level of the sinkhole.
Right.
I'm thinking that if you open up that chest and the Bonnie mask is inside, it's blue with purple splotches on it that you find in a box. I think that insinuates, hey, here's a new mask for me. And then you become the entity within the Mexus
Interesting.
console. Because it's like right below the burn trap layer in Ruin.
Fair. Like locationally, yes. I see
Yeah.
that.
It's hard to say for sure because of how abstract it is.
Yeah.
And like saying like, oh, it's a subtunnel like of the same pizzeria. It's like you have to be on that track to even like consider that worthwhile.
Yeah.
But
No, I
hopefully-
like that interpretation.
Hopefully it's like a through line people can understand.
Interesting. Yeah, because I've personally been opposed to Cassie's dad being the entity. I didn't think it needed to be. I didn't think it was necessary because I think the entity just acting as an avatar of a Mexus system works without Cassie's dad's involvement.
And I think
That-
it also plays into who is Cassie's dad, what is he like, and we don't know.
Yeah. No, for sure. Especially considering like if that Bonnie mask is also supposed to lead us towards the idea of him being the Bonnie bro from FNAF 4, which I do see that. I think that makes a lot of sense. Adding on to the idea of like the what makes you so special and all of that. But we still really don't know who that person is.
Yeah.
Even if that is true, like even if that's confirmed, it's like, okay, great. Doesn't really tell us a lot about his character 50 years later.
Yeah, and that's kind of like a big problem I have right now with the whole Cassie's dad plot. Is like we have all these like clues to his existence and who he might be. We know nothing about the guy, and I don't know if we
Yep.
will.
I don't know. I think I don't know. Because I've got a lot of thoughts on who he is, and I think that I've been saying for a while, I think he's Jeremy Fitzgerald, not Help Wanted Jeremy, FNAF 2 Jeremy.
I feel like it's probably the same guy.
I think it lines up, especially like if you consider the like FNAF movie lean that like Michael was helping William to an extent unwillingly for some amount of time. The idea of Cassie's dad, presumably Michael's friend Bonnie Bro, being roped into that until he is possibly bitten. Bite of 87, maybe, you know. If that's possibly a road you go down, I think that lines up. The thing I have a problem with. I've seen a lot of people. I think ID's Fantasy also believes this. I could be wrong. Not to put words in your mouth if you don't believe this, ID's, saying that Cassie's dad is Help Wanted 1 Jeremy. I think Help Wanted 1 Jeremy's dead. I think he has to be. I don't know what your thoughts on Help Wanted 1 Jeremy is.
I think he tanked it. Why not?
Nah, I'd win.
Just put the face back on. Just put it back on.
Fair. Stitch it right on. Well, because, like, I think it's not unprecedented for a human in the FNAF universe to survive something like that.
And also, there's, like, nothing that says definitively, like, he died. And
Yeah, it's
he's
never
not
said
coming
he
back from that.
died. They dance around the
They
idea
dance
of a
around
death.
the idea of it, but it's vague enough to where it's like you could bring him back and then like still
It wouldn't be bullshit.
even
yeah.
referenced Help Wanted 1 in the achievements for Help Wanted 2, like with Remember Jeremy, which is collect the memory, the Bonnie like
Yeah,
memory
which is like,
specifically.
what are you talking about? What does that mean?
Yeah. And then
no,
like
I think
Ruin
that is
also
worthwhile.
in the Fazbear Theater, there's like some graffiti on the projector screen that says Jeremy with the pizza slice. And then in Help Wanted 2, you even get the
we're looking past
Fazbear
the
Theater.
We're missing the forest for the trees. You're so right. Jeremy Pizza. It's not
Jeremy Pizza.
it's not Andrew Pizza. It's been Jeremy Pizza this whole time.
But yeah, I'm getting sidetracked with like the stuff.
I mean,
Help Wanted
talking
1
about
Jeremy.
FNAF World specifically connects to so many things you kind of have to.
Yeah, and especially Ruin, because it's
Yeah.
been driving me crazy. Ruin is so FNAF World pilled. Like you have like the security system.
Just a warning, that is the cold open now. Just warning you, that is going to be the cold open. I want you to know that.
What? Golden Freddy is a time traveler. Find the clocks isn't good enough of a cold open.
Oh no, that's how we opened the episode. Cold open goes before the intro. If I made the intro the cold open, they'd hear the same thing twice. That'd be
Right,
crazy.
You're right. That was the first thing I said. But yeah, and I talked about this a lot in the last one. I think like all the random like connections between Ruin and World, because there's like Pinwheel Circus and then like Fall Fest and Carnival, that whole thing. Mimic Ball, Mad Endo, Mimic, White Rabbit,
Mimic
Danny,
Ball.
Mimic Ball, my boy. And then like another one I didn't consider then, I don't think, was Bubba, looking a lot like Dreadbear.
I see that. I don't.
It's not green, and it doesn't really
Yeah.
tie into everything as much. But I find it
they're like a
noteworthy.
similar theme, which I
Yeah.
do see. Not to mention the fact that Bubba is.
It's a
isn't-
patchwork bear with like screws on his jaw.
Isn't Bubba in the Pinwheel Circus like Funhouse Maze?
I think so.
I think
Yeah.
so. The last time I played FNAF World was the randomizer, so I'm a little mixed up on where people are supposed to be. So
That's the only version of FNAF World I play most of the time. So
I mean, it's a very fun version.
it's so fun. It's so fun.
I see where you're going. I don't know. It's notable, however, I mean, to add on to that idea, much looser connection. The only mediocre melody in outside of Mystic Hippo in a way, in Help Wanted 2 is
Pig Patch. Yeah,
which is interesting.
it is. And it's,
Especially the fact that he's got the fucking, and he's always had them, but the green and blue eyes.
and it's like, and then you go back to FNAF World and you have Pork Patch, and he's literally a patchwork of different like colors and stuff.
What do you, I don't know if this adds to our current conversation, but I want to put it in your brain. I was looking at the endoskeletons in Help Wanted 2. Lefty and Carney have the exact same endoskeleton, and it's a
Yes.
different one from Pig Patch.
That's because Pig Patch is a mediocre melody,
Right,
and
but
Lefty's a
I'm
rock star.
does this what are your thoughts on Carney? So I know there's the idea of like maybe Lefty is a refurbished Carney. What are your thoughts on Carney being a refurbished Lefty?
I don't know.
Because
'Cause-
I have a feeling our next Fall Fest game is Fazbear Entertainment going, hey, look at what we're bringing back. Everyone's favorite Fall Fest.
It was in fact not everyone's favorite. And something
I don't
will go
know what you're talking about.
horribly wrong.
Everyone loved Fall Fest, and everyone loves the attraction at the Pizzaplex where you can reenact and role play the time where someone who worked at our place killed children. It's great.
you know.
We love the child killing role play section.
Love that one. I'll be real. Like when I read Pressure for the first time,
Pressure is
like,
fucking crazy.
Half of my thought process was just, this would be so fun. Put me in a Springtrap suit, I'll be running around for days.
Pressure is such a I think I don't know what's crazier about Pressure. The fact that in universe that attraction exists, or how the fuck did Ed get a real Springtrap suit?
You know,
Where did he make it? Was it Earl or Ed or whatever the fuck?
Earl. It was
Earl? Who the fuck is Earl? Like,
Some creep.
you
Springtrap
can't drop
children.
some creep who just has access to to a Springtrap themed Springlock suit. That's crazy.
And what's crazy is he's the one that has the suit that's supposed to be there, like a
Yeah.
cheaper, like Halloween kind of suit. And then Luke is just stuck with the actual like Afton Springtrap suit.
Right? And it's like, okay, is that the
Who
actual
put that
suit,
there?
or is this a costume made to look like Springtrap that is also a Springlock suit? And if so, why are we making new Springlock suits? We stopped making those.
for the kids.
True.
Don't
For
you want to
Lucas
be
specifically.
Springtrap? Don't you want to be Springtrap?
I want to be Springtrapped after reading Pressure and Animatronic Apocalypse. You're catching strays every time, you two Animatronic Apocalypse fans.
You're saying this. I'm not convinced there are two of them.
No, it's fucking George and Steve. They're in my comments every day. I know who they are.
Oh,
No.
come on.
It's George from Idaho and Steve from Michigan. And one of them's in the 10th grade, and they're going to repeat it because they keep fucking reading Animatronic Apocalypse.
Why not read like Percy Jackson or something?
True. What else FNAF World do we got to talk about? Because I've got a couple questions. We won't do all the questions, but I do have a couple questions from the email. But I can't. I feel like, what else FNAF World?
Yeah, I have some more notes.
Yeah, go for it.
So, like, back to the clock ending. Like, setting up the good ending, and FNAF World seeming to, like, have to do with, like, the fate of the crying child. It feels like the tying knot for FNAF 3 and 4 specifically. To kind of wrap up the original story and then segue to Sister Location. And then something Scott mentioned in the first, like, Doco interview. I'm so excited to get to say the first one now.
Right?
But in the first Doco interview, he mentioned, like, to the question of which FNAF 3 ending is canon, the good ending or the bad ending. And he said, it's very interesting and it's very complex. That's my Scott impression.
That's pretty good.
Usually
Scott,
it sounds
hello?
more stupid
Scott's
than
on the
that.
line right now?
Hello, I'm Scott Cawthon. I put
Oh,
Springtrap
Scott.
in the basement.
Thank you for coming. Why did you Midnight Motorist?
You know.
Why?
Yeah, so it's midnight, right? And I was
Yeah.
driving down the street, hit a couple cars, and I went to Carl's Jr. And they wouldn't let me in. They were like, "It's closed. You shouldn't be here," you know.
Carl's
like-
Jr. I gotta write this down.
And I was like,
So, you heard it here
don't
first,
you know
folks.
who I am? I'm
Kids
Scott
at
Cawthon.
Play-
I made Chipper and Sons Lumber Company, and Five Nights at Freddy's too. But you know,
You heard it here first, folks. Kids at Play is an autobiography.
I don't know what that is.
That's the one where this is the Fazbear Frights where a dude hits a kid. No,
You
this is a
think
Tales
I
from the
read
Pizza
those?
Plex. I think it's a no, you didn't. But it's a Tales
I
from the
didn't
Pizza
write
Plex.
those. I don't know what Fazbear Frights is. Scholastic
It's the
just like took
story
the
where,
license.
It's a story where where a dude hits a kid and then turns into a yellow Kids at Play sign. It's that one. That what happened to you, Scott?
It happened to my buddy Eric once.
Got it.
Anyway,
Yeah.
yeah. For the FNAF 3 canon ending, his answer was, it's very interesting and very complex. And I think FNAF World is what he meant by that. Because I think FNAF World is what the answer to that question is, which is, bad ending is canon. However, Golden Freddy or whoever orchestrates the events of FNAF World makes a conscious effort to change things. And we even see this in the FNAF movie again, like Golden Freddy specifically is like, don't you want to change what happened? You could have this every day. And like in exchange for something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's like an exchange going on in FNAF World, like as I'm thinking about it right now. But I think this
No, but there's still that
thing is
idea of
happening.
like, at least in your own mind, you can have peace. Which, like, that
And-
even lines up with the epilogues of Fazbear Frights. The idea of the Stitch Wraith doesn't like actually allow anyone in the ball pit to move on, but they can rest.
Yeah. And it kind of begs the question of how far does that power go? Could that make an entire reality where the bite victim, the crying child, just doesn't die? Like, could that happen?
I mean, maybe, but my first inclination would be in the crying child's continued consciousness, he now gets to play out that reality, whether or not that reality is true.
Mm-hmm. And then that...
And then
that
in
would
that
be
way,
what
having
the good
peace.
ending ends up in, is there. Because the good
Interesting.
ending, you have to go out of your way to get it.
Yeah,
And-
the good ending requires additional effort.
And the general, like, plot stream of the current games, like FNAF 6, like everything after FNAF 3, seems to be that the good ending did not happen. It doesn't seem like the spirits, like, moved on the way it insinuates. Because, like, even Henry's like, I need to bring them all back.
Well, consider the character encyclopedia says that the spirits move on at the end of FNAF 3, but Charlie stays around. So, you know, did you consider the character encyclopedia?
It also says that Vanny's an agent of Afton.
It also says that Phantom Foxy's hook hand has gone astray 2 times in a row.
I mean, it did. Twice.
True. In the same sentence, even.
But yeah.
I just-
But yeah, the good ending is really interesting because it seems like it might be like one of those like memories, altered memories. And
I see
what
that- I
kind
see
of
that through
reality do the alternate memories have? Like,
Interesting.
is that just as real as like the real world? And that's a question that keeps coming up too, is like what's reality and what isn't.
Yeah. Especially with how often, like, there are little pockets of reality within someone's mind. Like, is
Yeah.
Ultimate Custom Night real? We know it. Well, no. I believe it takes place in William Afton's mind, but does that make it more or less real?
Yeah. And like,
Interesting.
and then again in Ruin, it's like you go down and you get crazier. And like one of the endings, Cassie gets down there, escapes to the Fredbear cutout specifically, a glitched Fredbear cutout, and ends up in the hills with
Brazil!
Vanessa and Gregory.
Brazil!
And
She
it's
ends up in Brazil, yeah.
And it's the same hill from the base security breach ending in Burn Trap and Princess Quest 3, I think.
Yeah.
Like, in Burn Trap, it's Freddy and Gregory on that hill. And then Princess Quest, it's Gregory, Freddy, and Vanessa. And it's like,
With
it has the
balloons
same
coming up in the
flowers
background.
as Fazbear Hills, and it has the balloons coming up like Happiest Day.
That's interesting. And it's a matter of like, okay, so we are fairly certain that's not reality, but that still could be Gregory.
I could keep going with that, but I feel like I'll get even more lost in the sauce.
that is a whole separate tangent, to be fair.
Yeah, because like
Especially
the whole like
if-
reality and fiction thing with Security Breach, Ruin, and Help 1 and 2 is like, how far can you go with that? Like, is
Yeah.
Security Breach itself like Gregory, like in the AR world already?
Yeah. I mean, not to mention the idea of what J-Top said in the FNAF interview of there are a lot of things in Security Breach, Ruin, Help Wanted 2, and pretty much any Steel will produce thing that's like, we put this here, it doesn't make sense yet. There are things that either are not notable or nonsensical because we just don't have the answers for it yet. I think his
Right.
reference was Gravity Falls, the idea of like episode 1, Stan goes behind a vending machine. And that's not explained until like the latter half of the series, you know? Like
Yeah. And let's see, what else do I have noted here? Because I feel like there was something. Oh, right. Follow me. In regards to the Mexis console.
okay.
So the Mexis console is the security system, like for the Pizzaplex, but it's also very, very old. And like J-Top even mentioned, like, hey, if it's based on something from this time period? Is it perhaps something much older? And it's like, okay, was this in all the pizzerias? Because what is like something super notable about the Mexis console's room in regards to the path to free the mimic? It's the static where the doorway would be, and you can't pass it. And I'm thinking
Interesting.
that's because it's a safe room, and perhaps in Follow Me, we're seeing the exact same thing happen, where the animatronics like are programmed to follow a specific security network, and that room is locked off because the Mexis console has it locked off for them. And I think the same applies for the Mimic as well. Like, I can't remember for sure, but isn't there something in one of the Tales epilogues where it's like in a room and can't see a doorway? Like it just like assumes it's a wall? Or am I making that
No,
up?
the door was blocked.
It was blocked. Okay.
Yeah, it was like physically blocked on the outside. He was like, try this door. Does not work. Let me try something else.
Okay. So
There could be
never
something
mind
else
on
I'm
that
not
note.
remembering, but as far as
Never
I'm
mind
aware,
on
it was
that,
physically
but Mimic
blocked.
is prevented from escaping until Cassie deactivates the security system. Like he mentions,
Yeah.
you need to disable the security. He doesn't specify it. You just need to open this like metal door, or like hit the concrete or whatever.
Yeah, because one of them opens the door and one of them breaks the concrete.
Right. Yes, the Baz wrench that opens the door, and then the forklift. No, it doesn't matter. I'm kidding.
No, I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean, though.
I'm getting
Yeah.
all tangled in the wrong things.
Tangle? No, that's really interesting because I've been a big proponent. I think day one, very early on, I clocked Whopper specifically. Some interesting notes about the Whopper, actually. Let me see where I put these. Now, this is one of those things where I'm like, this could be nothing. However, it's worth bringing up. Where did I put it? Okay, so yeah, after the interview came up, somebody in my Discord rewatched War Games and noticed some things. Because, like, I clocked Whopper, kind of forgot what the plot of War Games was. So, to be fair, so do you know, like, the plot of War Games or anything about the Whopper machine?
Only what you told me last time.
Okay, so there's more than there was last time.
Yeah.
So the protagonist, now this gets very loose, but it's worth bringing up. The creator of the Whopper machine in the movie War Games, his son died in a car accident. The password for the machine is his son's name. Granted, Joshua, not important. And at the end of the movie, the creator of this machine comes back to help finish the job and get rid of and like fix everything. Another wrench. The protagonist of War Games is named David.
Oops.
Oops. I think most of that's a
Another
coincidence. But another David. Shout out another David theory. But
There's another one?
God, there's two of them.
My true another David theory is actually that the Mimic has been seeking out like more and more people named David, and he just thought Gregory's name was David.
True.
And then he immediately stopped caring.
It's like how William kept seeking out people named Jeremy. It's like but yeah, no, the Mexis machine being one of the oldest things in that room is very interesting.
Yeah. And I mentioned this earlier, like way earlier, but my thoughts on like Shadow Freddy connected to the entity. For Follow Me specifically, like what does Shadow Freddy do? He beckons the animatronics to follow him. And what's the entity's main mechanic in Ruin? He beckons the animatronics to hunt down Cassie.
That's a good point.
And one more thing, one little extra secret.
One more thing.
Little treat.
Shout out my
actually-
Jackie Chan adventure watchers.
It's actually a little sound design thing, which I'm just going to send you these audio files. Not doing anything fancy like last time. But the defeat sound for the entity is very similar to the defeat sound for Shadow Bonnie in FNAF AR. So you could just like listen to the 2 tracks I sent.
I should have waited to play that. I missed the second half of your. I immediately played the audio. I just like straight face zoned out. I'm like, oh, you sent me something, and immediately, and I saw your sprite bouncing. I'm like, wait a minute. Sorry, what did you say?
I'll say that again. The sound for defeating Shadow Bonnie in FNAF AR, everyone's wretched blight on this series. Mm-hmm. I'll be nice to it.
I like the game. I just didn't like the monetization. So.
Yeah, no, the monetization.
Forsaken
really
AR is pretty cool.
Forsaken AR is really cool. I don't like the gameplay that much, but it's so much nicer when it's not
Fair.
predatory.
Yup.
But Shadow Bonnie's defeat sound in FNAF AR is very similar to the entity like being firewalled by the Mimic in Ruin.
Interesting. All right, I'll play it and listen to it, and then that way there'll be a silence of the track to remind me to play it in the podcast episode. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I see what you mean there. Because, like, sure, you could argue it's like, okay, it's monster death sound effect, but there is, like, a similar construction in that sound effect.
It's got the same kind of, like,
It hits the same beats.
Yeah. It's really interesting. And, of course, like, the file names for the entity were, like, Black Rabbit, DLC Rabbit, and visually...
We solved it.
Oh, it's Pop Ghost.
Pop-Goes.
There's a reason they probably just called it the entity afterward. they were probably like, oh, wait, this is the same as Pop Ghost.
It's Pop-Goes. I got him.
Pop Ghost.
Sorry, I grabbed my Pop-Goes plush.
We unlocked him. The secret character. But, like, and visually speaking, it's very obvious that the entity evokes Shadow Bonnie. Even if it might not be the exact same, like, character. It seems to be the same kind of entity as Shadow Bonnie and Shadow Freddy, but a little different. It's much more digital, which I think is really interesting. And they even, like, played around with the concept, obviously, with, like, Ruinborn Afton.
Ruinborn Afton.
The original model in the files was much more like organic skeletal, like, monster. And then
which
they
I think
pivoted.
does evoke agony, but it evokes it in a very specific way that I think doesn't line up with what the entity is.
It evokes William Afton.
True.
It's a purple skeleton rabbit. And I think they were probably like, either from a stylistic standpoint, it might have been like, this gives the wrong vibe. Or like from a lore standpoint, assuming like they don't want the entity to be William, it's probably like, okay, we need to change this. I still think he kind of has way too much Springtrap vibes for comfort, but
True. I mean, they even said that in the interview was like everyone on the team is very conscious of like leans over. Ooh, don't make that room purple. That would mean something.
Yeah, they're very conscious of like color coding and not misdirecting.
Yeah.
And I think like seeing also like how the Mimic is utilized in Ruin gives a very clear picture of how they do like go about like misdirects, and that's giving clear tells. Because like the whole plot is Cassie being tricked into thinking it's Gregory, but as a player you can kind of catch certain things, like he says some of the same things Gregory does in Security Breach. He kind of sentence splices like more and more obviously.
The closer you get, the worse the voice is.
And then, like, for Helpy, it's like you usually have the blue-eyed one, like, talking to you like a normal kind of instructional character. And then you have the orange-eye one flicker in, and he's much more, like, snippy at you, much more opinionated.
Yeah. No, I think it's one of those things that, like...
And you're like, oh, that's the Mimic. Okay.
I understand, because there was a lot of frustration of, like, how am I supposed to... Like, of people who played Ruin and never read a book, and it was the idea of... a FNAF book, to be specific. Because people who played Ruin without reading it, was like, how was I supposed to know the Mimic is a thing until it's the reveal. And it's like, well, fair. But even without reading the books, just playing the game and looking at the game and thinking about what's going on, it's pretty clear before you get there, there is something copying something else down here. And you might not look at it and go, oh, it's the Mimic, but you could look at it and go, oh, that's what's been it's pretty, you don't need any book to understand what's going on in Ruin.
And
to
I
some
think
degree.
Ruin, the whole story was crafted as an introduction for the Mimic. And then the Tales books, I feel like they were probably written around the same time as Ruin, was in development. Maybe a little sooner, depending. It's hard to tell with how,
the
weird
DLC
Security Breach's development was.
The free DLC kind of being an introduction to our next major villain makes a lot of sense.
And the way Ruin goes about it, it does not expect you to know what the Mimic is. It kind of almost feels like it wanted that to be the big introduction of this new character we've never heard of before. And then the books threw a wrench into it where half the fandom's like, oh, it's the Mimic.
Yeah.
Which, to be fair, amazing reveal for anyone that knew what the Mimic was.
I think for when I was playing it on stream, I literally just as the I'm Gregory line is being said, it's just oh, I know you.
The orange eyes were so crazy because it's the whole time when I was playing Ruin, I was firmly we won't see this character in the games. I didn't think we would. And then as it went on, I'm no, who else would it be?
Right.
And the game even kind of baits you into thinking it's going to just be Burn Trap. The whole time it's you're kind of expecting okay, we're kind of doing over Security Breach. We're going to we're going to go to the basement and get a redo of that encounter since that was probably the most disappointing part. But instead,
and then you walk past the empty charging pod.
Yeah, it's empty. There's nothing there. You see the drawing and it's did it even happen? And then you go down further and you're okay, is he going to be in here? And then you just get met with a new endoskeleton. And it's
I think the best moment of Ruin, it's not the orange eyes, it's immediately after. It's the orange eyes and then it's standing up. Still in the darkness.
Yeah, the way it stands up.
The height of it. Even I've looked at that cutscene with lighting turned off, so you can just see everything fully clearly, and it still works. Yeah, he is so crouched, and then it's just the full it's kind of the effect of but used for horror. The effect of Ridley in Smash, where he has that one taunt,
where
he just fucking stands.
Where he just
it's that
stands
moment of oh, you're massive,
You said Ridley from Metroid, and my brain sparked.
I love my guy Ridley because he's really fucking smart, but he just acts like a hater monster because he is a hater.
He's like William Afton.
True.
He always comes back until he.
And
doesn't.
He also is basically a robot by the latter half of the series.
Mm-hmm. Then he gets cloned.
Oh, and then Metroid Dread broke my brain.
It just didn't have him. He's dead now forever. He's dead forever like William Afton.
True, which means he'll come back in the next game. Let's go!
Yeah! I'll always have more Ridley. I'll gladly take more Ridley. This is a Fazbear podcast, not Metroid.
Oh, yeah. I love my guy Ridley. I'll talk about him. I don't give a shit.
I can't believe none of the Freddy in Space games have made a Ridley Springtrap joke. Because it feels so easy.
I wonder if it's just Scott not, I'm sure he's he's a huge sci-fi head, so I'm sure he's appreciated and or played Metroid. He might just not know the lore of Metroid.
Fan game.
He did?
Yeah, he made a Metroid fan game.
Oh shit. Okay, then he probably doesn't. Because it just didn't come to mind. Because I was gonna assume he just didn't really know the lore of Metroid. But if you're making a fan game, you probably do.
Yeah, at least on a surface level.
Yeah, Scott, if you're watching this, because I know you watch every episode. Where's our Ridley Springtrap? Freddy in Space 4, make it happen.
Make it happen.
Or make him a skin for Springtrap Ridley inspired for 5 Laps at Freddy's when it comes out.
I can't wait to see.
I'm so excited.
A Springtrap in a go-kart.
I'm so hyped. If it looks anything like the Funko Racers did, it's going to be peak.
I'm really hoping it's the same art style as that Lolbit image.
Yeah, that little bit art style looked great. I mean,
Because
look,
that is so unique.
as long as it's like a little fun, I'm gonna play the fuck out of it. And if there's multiplayer, Crash Team Racing Tournament
even
Part
if
2.
it sucks, but the art direction's good, I'll have a field day with it. Because I
Oh,
love
yeah.
just like seeing new versions of the characters.
I just hope it, like, the only thing is that it's just make it control like a little good. That's all you have
Yeah.
to do. Everything else can be modded. If the course selection stuff's mods, sucks, mods, easy. If the character selection sucks, mods, easy. As long as it controls a little good, we can mod the rest of it. That's like that's all it needs to happen.
I was thinking about what were we talking about?
I don't know.
Mimic. We were talking about
The
the
Mimic.
Mimic.
I think I can't think of anything else to talk about for FNAF 4. I think we've
I think
drive
I've covered
that
all my
well.
bases with FNAF World. Like I'm
Yeah.
looking at my notes again, and I think I got.
I think to
all of
wrap
it.
it back, just remember the Mimic Ball is the most important part of FNAF World.
Yeah.
But anyway, I have questions pulled up. We're past an hour. We don't need questions. We're fine. I'll just save these for next week.
I'm a little curious what they are.
Here, I'll throw one to you, and this will
Yeah.
be what we end on. This Sean, it's your lucky day. Him. But thank you for your question, Sean. How do you think a hypothetical FNAF World 2 would pan out? Same basic gameplay loop with a new story, or something else? There are your questions, Sean. I think if we were ever to get like a true FNAF World 2, I think shot in the here's my Babe Ruth calling my shot. It's Cassie breaking out of the Vandy Mask's control. Calling my fucking shot, Babe Ruth. Steelwell, I've got your number.
Just
I
include
don't.
all the characters that weren't in the first FNAF World and make that the main roster.
True.
Make the gameplay not as seizure-inducing, and you have a
Hopefully.
10 out of 10 game.
Yeah, make
can
the
be-
fight
it can
animation
be
not
as a-
crush my bitrate immediately.
It can be as obnoxious, like balancing-wise, as you want it to be, as long as I don't strain my eyes looking at it.
I made I like to put gameplay in the background monitors of my set for videos just to like give Subway Surfers people a bit, give someone something to look at. But I did FNAF World once, and half of the comments were, I cannot fucking focus on anything because FNAF World is happening in the background and I'm blinded. like fair.
Oh, it's the worst. It's one of my favorite FNAF games. It's terrible. It's awful.
Yeah. Those are two correct statements.
Basically, all of Scott's FNAF games are both like, I absolutely love this, and I absolutely hate this.
Yep.
He is a master at just making the most obnoxious games that are just like,
That's
can't
my
help but
that's my
love
goat
them.
right there. Hop off my goat, Scott Mixed Bag Cawthon. All right.
it's like what is Pizza Sim if not for
Half of a good
absolutely
game.
terrible night gameplay with the wonderful Tycoon?
Hell yeah, I would just play that Tycoon. But
I can't believe we still haven't gotten Infinite Tycoon. I'm so sad about that.
please. That I think will do it. Do you have anything coming up you want to shout out to the people?
I am like working like daily on part 3 right now. I'm crunching myself.
Everyone stopped like doing homework and then is looking at the phone they're watching this on right now. I hope no pressure.
Oh. I hate publicly talking about part 3 because it sets up so many expectations so fast. But I'm like, I wanna talk about it, but I also am like, I still have hundreds of drawings to do.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine how much work
That
it
is an hour-long video.
Yeah.
I'm getting there though. I'm trying to get it done by next month. I don't know if that's humanly possible. If not, there's something coming next month. A little treat to tease it.
Little tidbit. Well, folks at home,
But yeah,
look out for that, and don't be an asshole about it. How about that?
Most people are fine about it. It's
Fair.
just always stressful about the imaginary, like, the two people that do act weird about it
Yeah.
become, like, 500 in my brain.
Yeah. No, I still read a lot of YouTube comments. I gotta stop though.
I stopped doing that, like, ages ago.
I read
still, like,
so many,
do it
and
sometimes, like, the first time I put something out, and I'm like, okay, I'm never reading
I
comments
think
again.
that's the mentally healthy way to do it is like the first hour after a video goes live, read those comments, like take some criticism, look through that, like take the feedback, and then don't look at them afterwards. Because if someone's commenting on a video from a year ago, it's not going to be positive.
Yeah. and it that was a lesson that took me forever to learn too, because like when I first started doing YouTube stuff, like those terrible Scrap Trap videos from years ago, like I would read every single comment, and it like drove me like insane.
My self-harm is I can't stop myself from searching Rytoast on Twitter and Reddit.
Oh, I stopped doing that too.
I cannot stop
I used
myself.
to have that habit, and then I'm like, nope, can't do it anymore.
It's-
I don't care. I don't
It's
care
honestly
what
not
people
that
are
bad.
saying about
Reddit's
me.
rough. Twitter's not
It's-
that bad, I'll be honest.
It's
Reddit's
never
rough.
that bad. It's never that bad. But there's always still one like
Yeah.
random comment from someone you've never heard of, and you're like, this is going to occupy my brain for the rest of this week. And this person, I don't know them, they don't know me, and they are not thinking about this nearly as much as I am.
Yup. But thank you for being on the podcast. It's
thank
always
you for having
always a
me again.
treat. And I guess thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye bye for now.